can hear Ben smashing away at his keyboard down there.
Furiously. What's he doing? What's he cooking up?
Hate comment. Someone's just beat him on a game. Rocket League.
Rocket League.
That's a game.
Yeah. Do you play, Ben? Yeah. Do you play Rocket League?
I used to,
Yeah.
There you go. He used to, and then he just lost this game, so now he's just sending a hate comment.
He sounds very calm for a man who's
of
just trying to tear someone apart over the internet.
the amount of slurs that he's hammering in right now.
Why do you ask?
We were just trying to imagine what you might be doing down there, because it sounds like you're abusing your keyboard.
Yeah.
I was just saying you were sending a hate message to someone who's just beat you on Rocket League.
No, I was just typing with ferocity.
Yeah.
And another thing. Okay, should we go?
Yeah, I've just realised that that jacket placement is maybe why you had to do such.
Well, no, because I try and not get the banister in anyway. I was going to move it, but then it's like, well, I don't want the banister.
Roger Bannister.
I don't want the banister either, so...
Was there a man? There's a man called Roger Bannister, wasn't there? Was he a runner? He's a neurologist, apparently.
No, he stood very still.
Neurologist? No, he was. So, yes, middle distance athlete. Yes. Sorry, Charlie. Yeah, you go. Let's go.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to The Top Step. Slightly going to fudge this one because it's currently Wednesday as we record, and you probably won't be hearing it until Sunday or Monday at the earliest, because unfortunately my co-host is doing actual broadcasting, whatever that means, instead of this. So, that's whatever. If you want to go and
this is
actually
broadcasting.
have a career.
This is, let's count it.
Sure. But no, yeah, you've got a lot on, don't you, Johnny? You've got election coverage and some football commentaries as well. Yeah,
I've got a pretty stacked week this week, so actual stuff is happening. And yeah, on Thursday night, I'm doing an 11 p.m. till 7 a.m. Covering the local elections alone in the office. I don't drink coffee. I don't like Red Bull. I'm raw dogging this bad boy. I might have a can. I might treat myself to a can of Coke, but I'm gonna have the Mr. Bean sort of matchsticks in the eyes. I think that's gonna be me on Thursday night. And then before that, I've got a football commentary. I'm commentating on Strasbourg versus Rayo Vallecano, two sides that I know very little about. So that's gonna be a fun day. Looking forward to that.
But at least you'll get to see a sneak peek at the next Chelsea manager, whoever that might be. Strasbourg, I imagine.
Do you think that's sort of... Well, yes, they have a link, don't they?
They own Strasbourg.
I didn't know they owned them.
Yeah, and that's where they got Rossini from.
Oh, I didn't know they owned them. That is very interesting. I thought they had like a little...
Well, no, but they're always constantly buying and selling players off each other.
Oh, right.
Absolutely
for inflated prices,
perhaps. That is... Yeah, Chelsea. What the hell is happening with them? I mean, it's fantastic to watch, but...
Yeah.
We were just talking about career mode before, actually, and I think that is an example of someone actually trying to make a career mode team in real life, and it's gone horribly wrong.
Working.
Which is good to know, just on the off chance that I ever did stumble into a management job, and that was my whole background.
Scouting through Football Manager, which apparently Ole Gunnar Solskjaer used to do. They asked him, so what have you done to prepare for the United job? He said, well, I've been playing a lot of Football Manager, and it's really helped. We won the treble. Didn't really work out, did it?
But yeah, so this is sort of nominally a Miami GP review, as we did promise beforehand that we were going to cover every race, but it's already a little bit late down the line, and will be further. So we'll try and broaden it out to a more general discussion, and there's lots to be discussed really, because the regulations have changed. There's been various upgrades to cars that mean maybe the pecking order has changed a little bit as well.
Peck.
And we'll get onto that. But first of all, let's just have a brief overview of the race.
Yes. Well, we'll start with qualifying. We'll get on to the regulations and stuff, but I feel like qualifying was improved, a marked improvement from what we had earlier on this season. But once again, it was Kimi Antonelli coming out on top. He's in quite good form at the moment, but he also doesn't seem to be able to get off the line very well. Max Verstappen qualified second, which is good to see. There are some positives this weekend for Max, and Red Bull look quicker, but as we always say, we'll get onto that. And it was quite a fraught opening couple of laps, with Kimi getting a classically poor start. and Max drawing alongside. The Ferraris always getting good starts, Leclerc drawing alongside, and those three were sort of going three abreast side by side into the first couple of corners, which really do tighten up. The first corner sweeps into a second corner, which is quite a bit of a flat out squirt into some S's, and it was in that little section that Max Verstappen, my beloved Max Verstappen, who very rarely makes a mistake, made a mistake and lost control of the car. I don't want to glaze in too much for this because he made a mistake, but the 360 was very cool and it was a very good catch and he did very well to avoid any further damage, but it did drop him down to the lower reaches of the top 10 and cooked his tyres and sort of, but for what I think Red Bull were hoping for, some rain or something, kind of took him out of the fight for the win and left a battle between three different manufacturers, McLaren, Ferrari and Mercedes, Antonelli, Norris, Leclerc. Piastri was there or thereabouts as well, scrapping away for the win in the early parts of the race. And George Russell, as we'll discuss George Russell in more depth, won't we, Charlie? But he was kind of nowhere, wasn't he? So that was quite a difficult thing to see because there was a point in the race where Leclerc was getting past Antonelli and Norris as well, and Russell was right there with his teammate, but he just wasn't able to capitalise, wasn't able to make any gains. And then when the safety car came out, Isaac Hadjar clouted the inside barrier into the chicane, a poor mistake, and he really needs to make sure that he doesn't, let this positive start versus Max slide, because he was absolutely destroyed over the weekend by Max. It was more akin to what we've seen from, the Tsunodas and the Lawsons and the later stages of Sergio Perez's Red Bull career. So hopefully that won't pan out that way.
Just to interrupt with a completely pointless interjection, but
do it.
I've never seen someone punch a steering wheel as many times as he did once he crashed. Because when it first panned on to the head, the sort of helmet cam, he was just smashing away at the thing, and then it kept cutting back to him, and then it was a different camera. He was still doing it, and then he got out, and he was still just punching other stuff. And then when we finally, because there was so much had happened at once, there was sort of two crashes at once. It took ages for the world feed to actually kind of feed in all the events. Yeah. And then when we got the other angle out of car of him crashing, he's punching the steering wheel immediately, like times that we hadn't even seen in the first, which is funny. So hopefully his hands are okay. But yeah, sorry, continue back. You're on a roll there.
Don't approach Isaac Hadjar after he's just crashed a Formula One car, I think is the message. But yeah, so there was that crash, and then there was Pierre Gasly as well, who was flipped over. Actually, I think it was Liam Lawson he was going side by side with, and he flipped over and into the barrier. So two completely separate but quite dramatic incidents at once brought out the safety car, which Max then pitted because his tyres were ruined from that first lap spin, and then his race was all about going long, trying to stay in touch with the leaders so that when they pitted they would come out behind him, and then hopefully for Red Bull some rain would come along, which never happened. And then we had this safety car come in this situation, and then it was battle on between Antonelli and Lando Norris. Nice to see the McLarens there or thereabouts fighting with the Mercedes, but Antonelli came out on top, and even though Verstappen did come out into the lead, it was very easy for the rest of the cars to catch him because he was just on such old tyres, and the rain never came, so that gamble didn't quite pay off, and he slipped down the order, which led us to this frantic final lap where you had Verstappen versus Charles Leclerc, and I think Piastri was involved. Or no, Piastri might have been a bit further up along the line. There was a third car involved, Charlie. Can you remember who it was? It was Leclerc. It was Max.
So you've caught me daydreaming. They were not daydreaming. I was reading the.
Oh yeah, he was doing some important work, some important stuff. So at the last lap, there was a frantic battle between Max, Leclerc, and then there was another car. It was Russell. It was George Russell.
Yeah, and they both got past Leclerc in the end.
Yes, because Leclerc dropped it and then was just cutting corners all over the place, and actually got like a 20-second penalty after the race. Max also got a 5-second penalty for crossing the pit lane at exit, which at first that's usually a slam dunk, and also that's quite a rookie error. But then I watched the replay and he just doesn't. So I'm a bit confused about that one.
They waited till after the
Because they didn't have the angles. Yeah, they released a statement saying we couldn't investigate this during the race because we didn't have the angles at our disposal to decide whether he did or didn't. My theory on that is, because watching the replay, it doesn't look like he does cross it, is that they went, well, if we give him 5 seconds, it looks like we've done our job, and also because of Leclerc's 20 seconds, he loses no positions, so we'll just play it safe and do that.
It's very like old school pre-VAR football ref where you just kind of even it out.
Yeah.
Like, well, I've given you one, so
I'll give you. Yeah, I didn't give this penalty, so I won't give this one, even though they were both obviously penalties. That sort of thing, but the opposite, because it wasn't a penalty. But anyway, so Leclerc had a torrid final lap and went from fighting for the podium with Piastri, I think it was, to finishing behind Verstappen, which was a bit of a nightmare. And and George Russell actually had a bit of a coming together, a bit of a banging of wheels with him, and actually crossed the line with half a front wing. I don't know if you saw that, but there were sparks flying off the car. So a mental last few laps, and actually quite an exciting Grand Prix, really, all in all.
Yeah, good race. The first few laps as well were crazy, and then there was enough going on in the middle to keep it entertaining, especially with the with the changes of order with pit stops. Obviously, sometimes that can be a little bit boring, but it seemed like it was genuinely kind of like who's going to get this right and win this race. And it seemed like Antonelli did good work in his pit stop to get ahead of Norris and potentially maybe won the race there and then. But yeah, where does that leave us all? I'll read this as you've written it.
Yeah.
Where does that leave us? ... Where does that leave Russell? Should he be shitting hiselef?
This document was written about 65 seconds before we hit record, because we're so prepared for these podcasts these days. And I have to say, I didn't maybe give it the due care and attention. I mean, I don't know if it necessarily deserves due care and attention, but as you can see, possibly my effort levels weren't quite there with it. But you get the idea.
Should he be shitting himself?
I don't think he should be shitting himself. I think it's early day. He was actually quite circumspect about the whole thing after the race, saying things like, if you were in a 10,000 meter race and you've done the first 1,000 meters, should you be panicking that the race has got away from you? No, we've seen Mo Farah fall over and win gold before. So we should not be. I'm not worried. And I think that's very fair because it's very early days. And if we kind of reflect on how the season's actually gone for Russell so far and break down the events, yes, he's 20 points behind Antonelli in the championship. That doesn't look great. 25 points for a race win, though. In one race, he can be back in the lead. It's just swings and roundabouts. Crazy things have happened. I remember in 2021, sorry to bring up the cursed year, but Verstappen was 33 points ahead of Lewis Hamilton going into Silverstone and got absolutely murdered into the fast right-hander at Copse Corner, and suddenly Hamilton was right back on his tail again. So anything can happen. I don't think he should be too worried. At the first Grand Prix in Australia, he dominated. Fairly routine pole to win. Yes, he got overtaken a few times at the start, but he never really looks like losing that one. And then second time round, it was China, wasn't it? And in the... Is that right? Am I getting the ordering of things right here? I think it was. F1 calendar. Let's have a look and just make sure that I have got this right. Yes, it was China. So in Chinese Grand Prix, he won the sprint, and Kimi Antonelli actually had a torrid day that day and finished way down the order, and it was looking like, Kimi's struggling. Same in Australia, he had a terrible start and he was nowhere and had to really fight back up to the front, and we were thinking, Kimi's, has he got what it takes to take the fight to George? Is it going to be just a clean sweep this year?
And he had another rough sprint this weekend, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Well, he got penalised for going over track limits too many times. I think he finished ahead of Russell, but got demoted behind him because he kept exceeding track limits. And then in the Chinese Grand Prix race itself, in qualifying, George was looking set for pole, but then had engine problems in the final part of qualifying and did really, really well to get second place. And then in the race itself, arguably had the better pace of the two, but spent so much time behind the Ferraris because they jumped him at the start with their crazy great starts. And then he got back past them again, and then the safety car came out, and the way the pit stop shook out, it dropped him back behind them again, and he had to go and overtake them. But by the time he was just him and Kimi, 1 and 2, Antonelli was about 12 seconds ahead. Russell caught him a little bit, but his tyres were obviously a bit more damaged because of that battle, and he couldn't, close him in. But arguably had the better pace of the two in that situation. Japan, yes, Kimi took pole and was just better on Saturday than George, but in the race he had a terrible start. Russell was ahead of him. Russell was closing down on Piastri for the win, was looking like he was about to take the lead, boxed to undercut for the lead. The next lap, the safety car comes out, which screws his entire race and drops him a few positions behind Antonelli. Antonelli, who didn't pit, does under the safety car and inherits the lead, and suddenly, Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt, and Gary's got no relation. It's very difficult for Russell to catch him at that point. So I think you could argue that had things shaken out a different way, and in terms of pure race pace, that George has been on top more than Antonelli this year. I think he will know that. Miami, he was the second best of the two Mercedes, quite comfortably. But if we go back to last year, in Kimi's debut year, George qualified 5th in the sprint, Antonelli was on pole. Same thing happened this year, and Antonelli was quicker than George across the whole weekend last year as well. Miami's just not a good track for George. I still, even though he's 20 points behind, have George Russell as the favourite for the championship, personally. Because I think, and we saw it last year with the European run of races, Antonelli showed chinks in the armour, and he'll improve, of course, but I don't think George should be too worried. He just needs to make sure he, stays on top of it mentally.
Pardon me. Yeah. There's risen a few questions. Well,
Question away, boy.
First of all, I think we were kind of saying this the other day. If only there was precedent for something like this happening with an emerging kind of superstar that's been tipped for a world title.
Something within the last 12 months, perhaps.
Yeah, and then their teammate, their less experienced teammate, stealing a march on them to steal your march, steal your phrase. And, we know what shook out on that one. So, that was, literally last year this happened. So I don't think George Russell needs to be too alarmed. And I think I was kind of surprised to hear it was only 20 points. And I think it shows the importance of sprint races, really, that's where he's kind of clawed back on Antonelli. I guess, one thing I want to ask about that I'd noticed is that, Damon Hill has really kind of gone in on Russell. Russell seems to be his favourite child, but he seems to, this weekend have gone against him a bit and said, he's gone missing and questioned his mindset. Do you think that's right?
I would question Damon Hill as a human being, to be honest. Look, Damon Hill, he was the darling of the nation in the 90s, but it's not the 90s anymore, Damon. He doesn't like Max Verstappen, so I've got right. I have question marks over him. He always goes in on Verstappen whenever he has the chance. Oh, we just touched toes there. That was a nice little romantic moment. Will they? Won't they? Throughout the podcast, they will at some point. I don't think he's right, Damon. I think, come on, it's been a handful of races at the start of this season. There's a long way to go. I think George Russell's mindset has been fantastic. He's come out at the end of this race and said, Miami wasn't great, I was slower, but I was faster at most of these races. I back myself. I know that I can turn this round. I'm not worried because, he mentioned I think it was 10,000 metres. He made some reference to another sport where would you, 10 minutes into a football match, you go 2-0 down. Of course you don't give up at that point. There's loads of time left. So I think George is in a great place mentally, and a lot of people could be dealing with this a lot worse. I think Lando Norris at times was mentally showed more fragility last year than Russell has so far this year. I think Russell's been fine. So yeah, Damon, shut up.
Fair enough. I guess the difference with the racing analogy is that he's got 2 weeks now to sit at home and think about this, and that can't be good. But also, you've got time to strategize and improve and all that. But over to Antonelli then. It is undoubtedly very impressive what he's doing, and I don't know if you saw the stat about the only F1 drivers whose first 3 pole positions came consecutively.
Is that a quiz question?
Yeah. It's not the hardest quiz question.
Okay. Michael Schumacher.
Yeah.
Pole positions came consecutively. Could be Nico Rosberg.
It's Senna.
Senna. Oh, okay.
So
there we go.
It's good company.
It's
to
good
be
company.
In,
Yeah.
Senna and Schumacher.
And I think he's the only person for their first 3 wins to be in a row. I think that's never happened before.
Yes, that's right. Which is remarkable. And you alluded to his poor starts. So the fact that he's, if you were to imagine that someone had done that feat for the first time of 3 poles and then 3 race wins, you'd probably imagine it to be a lot smoother than it actually has been for Antonelli. He's conceded the lead on all 3 occasions. He's just can't seem to figure out how to get these new cars off the line. Does it make the wins more or less impressive? Because, he's had to come back and battle in all of them, but also you have the feeling that that's one of the ways that George Russell is going to be able to pull this back, as if Antonelli is making, essentially starting every race with a mistake. It seems like you're not really likely to be able to win the championship like that.
Yeah, it's a really good question. In any other era of Formula One, he can't keep getting away with it. He could not get away with it, because this time last year, if you were getting bad starts like this, it was so much more difficult to overtake that going from first to fifth, first to third, every race, you probably would have won none of them, especially the Japanese Grand Prix. I mean, yeah, he got a bit lucky with the safety car, so maybe that is what won him the race, really. But the tracks like that are so difficult to overtake at. Miami is not the easiest track to overtake at. If he'd have gone backwards again last year, he would not have won that Grand Prix. In fact, it happened in the sprint race, and he languished. He actually slipped further back. So he is fortunate that the rule set allows for you to basically show the pace of the car and come back through with much more ease than you ever have been able to, really. But he can't keep getting away with it. It won't keep happening. The luck has very much swung in Kimi Antonelli's favour so far, be it in China with that qualifying for George and then the 2 Ferraris getting between them, and then the safety car was mistimed for George. That happened even more, but doubly so, triply so, in Japan, where George was making moves for the lead, and then the safety car came out at the worst possible time for him and left him 4th or 5th. It's not going to keep happening, and these little swings are going to even their way out. Yes, it looks like Kimi Antonelli is dominating and really putting a move on George here and knocking him to the canvas, and has him rocking. But when you actually delve into little individualistic things that have happened throughout the season, Antonelli's been very fortunate so far, and in terms of pace across the whole season, it's been relatively even, possibly even George on top. So it's going to bite him at some point. He's got to he's been very lucky, and what's good for him is that he has time to sort it out. And if he can sort it out now, he can say, well, yeah, when I made those mistakes, I got lucky and came out with a lead, and now I've sorted it, so fantastic. But if he doesn't sort it out, it will cost him, no doubt about it, because you can't, this is Formula One, you don't keep getting lucky all the time. It always evens out across a season. 2021 is a great example. In the end, the right thing happened. So that, yeah, the racing gods will even things out. So does it make his wins more or less impressive? I think it makes them more impressive as a spectacle to watch him come through. But in terms of setting him up for the rest of the season, it provides an element of worry and doubt. If he'd have just won those races pole to flag, then I'd be sat here going, wow, Russell's in trouble because Antonelli's got his number. But now, I don't think the number's even been asked for at this point.
Yeah, and I think you already see changes happening that are going to make it harder for Antonelli to do something like that, because we've had this enforced 5-week break in the season, and obviously it's clear that no one's been stood still in that time. Both the sport in a more wider sense and the regulations, but also those front running teams have been hard at work, and it seems like Mercedes' dominance is being chipped away at. And you imagine if there's more different teams up there in the running with fast cars, it's going to be harder for him to sweep by these top drivers like a Norris or a Verstappen. But onto the those the big four, it was quite heartening to see Red Bull and McLaren really, who have been the two struggling out of the four, really clearly bringing improvements this weekend.
Yes.
And I think if we, as you said, we saw a three-way battle for the lead with three different teams, which is really cool. And you feel that if Verstappen hadn't made that uncharacteristic mistake, we might have seen a four-way battle.
Yes.
So what is the pecking order now? If we're saying beforehand it was Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull quite clearly, do you think there's been any changes to that?
Yeah, that was pretty clearly the order before. And I think that there has been some changes to that. I think we're now in a situation where it's closed in to the point where that will now change race to race depending on the characteristics of the circuit, which is what you usually get when you've got like quite a tight battle. Different cars will shine at different circuits that really play to the car's strengths. Ferrari are a really interesting one because they were firmly the second best team and kind of pushing Mercedes right at the start of the year. But now it feels like McLaren are the team that are pushing Mercedes the closest. In fact, in Japan, you could make the argument that, I've been saying that George Russell was in prime position to win that race, and yes, he was. But let's not forget that George Russell, when he pitted and that safety car came out, he was pitting because he was trying to undercut Oscar Piastri. He was trying to make a move for the lead. He wasn't in the lead. McLaren was. So there is possible doubt there. Could Piastri have won that race? McLaren could have won the Japanese Grand Prix. And then in this one, Lando Norris was right there with Antonelli throughout a lot of the race and led a decent chunk of it. And on pure pace, caught and passed both Leclerc and Antonelli in the first sort of phase of the race. So I think McLaren have definitely vaulted from third to second, at least in terms of where we are currently, and arguably are right there with Mercedes. I think, overall, Mercedes are still the faster package, but I think McLaren are right there with them. And once they kind of get their head around this car that hasn't actually had that many miles. The first couple of races, Piastri didn't even start the race. So I think there's real hope for McLaren there. As for Red Bull, their quest was not really getting, ahead of any of those teams. It was closing up on them because with it, what I think, when you said the pecking order was Red Bull were fourth, I think really it was Mercedes, Ferrari, McLaren, and then Red Bull were in the midfield, and it was, are they faster than Alpine? Are they faster than the Racing Bulls? Whereas now they've found a real step, and Max Verstappen was really quite happy after Miami for someone who had just dropped it on the first corner and had to brilliantly recover, might I add, to fifth place. But once again, he made a mistake. That's annoying. But he seemed quite happy. He was like, yeah, I dropped it on the first corner, my bad, but we had some pace, so there's definitely positives, and I feel quite good, and I enjoy driving the car. That was not the look of a man who was thinking of quitting the sport, so fingers crossed that's the case, and he doesn't actually quit the sport.
Yeah, they seem to have been wheeled back those conversations, but it's literally what we said. It didn't take a genius to know that he just wanted to be competitive, and he's such a fierce competitor that it was clearly, at least on some level, being in the midfield that he wasn't enjoying. And as long as I think he can park some of his principles on the way the cars work, number one, there have been a few changes which he called just a tickle. Yeah. But also, he just clearly was not enjoying not being in a fast car. And I think if he is in a fast car, then he'll be fine. And I think, I honestly reckon that even if Red Bull can't fully turn it around, it would probably be more likely to see him go to Mercedes or something like that than him to walk away. Like, I think he just wants to be winning F1 races.
I hope you're right.
Promising stuff for him.
It is, and the fact that he qualified second as well with those rule changes, I think, is a marker of improvement for Red Bull, but also a marker of improvement for the rules as well. Because if you've got someone who's kind of skill, and also Leclerc qualifying decently as well, two drivers, they're probably the two fastest drivers in Formula One. And the issue with the rules was that if you push and sort of attack a corner, you're actually losing time. So I think those two, how they perform in qualifying is a bit of a litmus test for how genuine the rules package is in qualifying. And with those two performing well, it suggests that qualifying is kind of getting back to what it should be, which is the faster drivers, the ones who can push harder, carry more speed into corners, are rewarded rather than taken away from. So I think that might be another reason why he is a little bit more chilled about his future now, is that, well, at least if I do a good lap, I will be rewarded for it. I think that was something he was annoyed about previously.
Yeah, so on to the regulation changes. Would you be able to quickly, in layman's terms, explain some of the things they've done?
Yeah, so it's all about power deployment. I'm gonna pull them up here so I can sort of like actually go through them a little bit. F1 reg changes, but it's just basically not giving them like a huge like so that the amount of megajoules that they can deploy is being lessened, which, yes, slows the cars down over lap time, slows the car down on the straights, but it also means there's not these huge disparities in terms of safety between cars in front who are harvesting and cars behind who are not harvesting and having insane closing speeds. Let's have a look. So adjustments to energy management parameters, including a reduction in maximum permitted recharge from 8 to 7. Okay, yeah, so it's just basically, because what we were seeing at the start of the season, particularly into the fast left-right, I think it's turn 8 at Australia, at the end of that straight, cars were just coasting in, and in qualifying you were just seeing cars downshifting into a flat-out, a really fast corner, which was horrible to see, which was to harvest energy for the next straight so that they wouldn't run out of gas down the end of the next straight and would be able to keep their performance out across a lap. But now that going from 8 to 7 will make a slight difference and mean that they won't have to harvest so aggressively. Peak super clip power increased to 350, further reducing time. Yeah, so this is basically all these changes are to allow drivers to push harder in qualifying. And there was a good statement about, I can't remember who put this across, but that it might be better to see slower cars pushed to the edge than faster cars driven conservatively. It's a better spectacle. Yeah, the lap times might be slower, but the racing package all along will be better. We still had a few yo-yos though in the race. I think that was probably the biggest attraction. Qualifying was much better. In the race, the Leclerc Antonelli Norris battle. We saw a lot of you go past, now I will repass you, which I think still made it feel a little bit artificial. But then again, it was a good race. I think we're going to have to see how that pans out. I think all in all, the changes were a step in the right direction rather than a solution, I would say. Right,
yeah. The yo-yoing was a weird one because, yeah, of the three main issues that have arisen so far, it does seem like the one that's the least of an issue. Obviously, there's safety concerns with one, and then qualifying basically just kind of ruined in the other. So, if we have to keep having cars overtaking each other all the time, I guess we can live with that.
It's not the worst.
But it's like you can still tell that, people are still struggling to rewire their brains to really know when a move has stuck. I think not only the drivers, but even the kind of commentators have become a lot more tentative about when an overtake happens, not giving it the big sell. But I did notice a couple of times in this one where Crofty was trying to be a bit more decisive and thinking, no, he's got that one's stuck. And then it completely unstuck straight after. It seemed like the only overtake in the whole race which stuck properly was Piastri on Leclerc on the last lap, because Leclerc then made a mistake with some oversteer and then spun out, and it seems like one of the drivers has to make a mistake for it to be all over, really. Is there no way that they could tweak the rules to change that? Like, if you're overtaken, you don't then instantly get the overtake sort of energy allowance back?
But I think the situation is that what's happening is the driver behind is deploying a high amount of energy to go past. The driver in front is going, okay, well, he's going to get me, so I'll save mine. The battery is emptied on the pass on the first straight, which meant on the next straight, that person has used it all and the other person saved it. And I don't think it's necessarily because the boost, terminology is difficult here, because I believe that overtake mode and energy boost are actually different things. And overtake mode you can get when you are, or it might be boost. The naming of things is really difficult, but one of them you get when you are a second behind.
Yeah, I think it's overtake. That's kind of replaced DRS.
And then boost is more of like a deployment strategy. And I think maybe you could take overtake away. You could say that once you get it once a lap, maybe. But the tactic as the car in front is that if a car is clearly going to go past you, you just save your energy until the next straight and then repass them, which I think is always just going to be a thing. Because with DRS, actually, they implemented it in some cases where depending on the placement of the detection point, you would get DRS on both straights anyway. So if you've made the move, you weren't necessarily giving DRS to the car behind. You'd have the next straight and then a half a lap to try and break away. Maybe that could be done, but in terms of energy deployment, I think it's going to be very difficult to overhaul that because that's the whole reg set. And they have actually made slight changes to that in terms of how much you can deploy at once. I think that's just I think it'd be tough to fix that.
Yeah, and I imagine the situation they're trying desperately to avoid with the tweaks is having to move away from the 50-50 split.
Good catch.
Thank you. Because I think that would be a bad look on F1 who are trying to go net zero and they kind of enticed in Audi and Cadillac
exactly
with this kind of electrical energy thing. So I think they need to try and hold on to that if they can. Do you think you could see a tactical tweak from drivers themselves, just thinking, well, what's the point in all these overtakes if they're just going to spend my battery? And we might see overtakes kind of decrease in that way, where drivers are a little bit more strategic about just following a car and then trying to overtake them at a point when it'll be able to stick.
Possibly. These guys have been racing for a long time throughout their whole life, and I do think that naturally when the pass is there, you want to go for it and you believe. I think as a driver you have to have this mindset where yes, that statistically I'm probably going to get repassed, but no, I believe that I can make a difference on this one braking zone in this one corner to make it stick. So I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? Because maybe, but then again, when would that chance arise? I feel like there's always going to be, unless you sort of catch them napping by deploying into a corner where you don't expect to move. There's a little twisty bit around Miami, which is sort of like there is a slight overtaking zone. I don't know what the turn is, but it's just before the sort of really tight chicane section around the Hard Rock Stadium, sort of midpoint of the lap. Further towards the end of it, where you can make a move and then you have a few corners to break away. And we saw a few drivers, I think a few of Max's moves coming back through the midfield were into there. There was also a really interesting point, so this season I've kind of gained a lot of respect for Lewis Hamilton. I've been quite happy to see him doing quite well. But I don't know if you've seen the point where Verstappen overtakes him. They both go off the track. So Verstappen tries to let him through, and in classic Lewis Hamilton 2021 fashion, refuses to repass him until he wants to, which shouldn't be allowed, by the way. This is in the sprint, actually, where basically cost Max a chance of getting a sprint podium because he moves over to let him through, and then Lewis just sits behind him going, no, I'm not going past you. I don't want to overtake you. No. That needs to be banned. That needs to be outlawed. That is annoying. Anyway, tangent there for me to just express my frustration. It really took me back to 21, that, because he did it in Saudi Arabia and then just rammed into the back of Max. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much the drivers can actually do in this situation, because there's always going to be a point at which the best overtaking zone naturally leaves you susceptible to a move. So it's hard to see. Somebody might be able to work it out, but I'm not sure, Charlie. I'm not sure.
One more thing that I wanted just to briefly mention, as I keep saying, I've just been obsessed with the plight of Aston Martin in this season, and they seem to at least be finishing races now.
That's something,
working on it. They're still very, very slow and down there with Cadillac, but we've spoken about, surely, Fernando Alonso out of contracts at the end of the season. Is this finally it? It would be a shame to go away with a whimper, but he's been clear for a long time that he wants to end on a positive note. I think he thought that maybe this season could be that. It's not panned out, and as a result, the old dog is saying he's still got some life in him yet, and he wants to continue on past this season.
Yeah, he's the Jimmy White, isn't he? He's the Jimmy White of Formula One. He's like, I will not go. I will keep going until I die. I mean, Formula One's better with. I mean, it's like we've had the Verstappen conversation. Formula One's better with Fernando Alonso in it, and it's a shame that he doesn't get as much screen time. And I don't think he would have wanted to be having what was actually quite a decent ding dong battle with Sergio Perez in the Cadillac in this Grand Prix. Not where they wanted to be at all. Of course, Cadillac first time entrance into Formula One in their first ever season, who are expected to be miles off the back, and yet they're battling with Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin. He's always got a point to prove, and he's just that kind of character, this prickly, and he's been so hard done by in his career. The stats don't tell the story at all. He's one of the, as far as sport, all of sport, and I think Jimmy White is a fantastic comparison, because the stats and their actual trophy cabinet goes nowhere near to describe the talent that they had and how good they were. And Alonso is just the quintessential what if kind of guy.
Yeah, I guess maybe the Dutch teams as well. Total Football, you could put them up there.
Very good point.
Lost a few finals or a couple of finals and just
Kick a Spaniard in
completely
the chest.
transformed. Not them, no. the
Yeah.
more like the 80s Cruyff,
The Cruyff
era. Yeah,
yeah.
like maybe one of the best football teams ever and never won anything.
Yeah.
About on the snooker, what a tournament! Absolutely
Fantastic.
It was amazing
snooker tour,
from start to finish. So
Probably
many
the best
close
world
games.
championship. Yeah.
Best I can remember. Wu Yiza. I think by the end, I was happy that he won. I know you like Sean Murphy and his massive face.
Yeah,
but
Sean Murphy has a massive face, and I like because he's a bit of a prick, and I like that. I like that. He clearly is his own biggest fan, but also he was very gracious in defeat.
Yeah, as he has been for. Well, you could put him up there in the conversation. That was his fourth consecutive world final defeat after winning it 20 odd years ago.
And also deciding frames in World Championship finals are just a flip of the coin, really.
Yeah.
And, he played so well in that final. It
Absolutely.
could have gone either way.
Well, yeah, that last... Well, I didn't realise... It was only the fourth ever deciding frame, I think. I didn't realise one of them was Jimmy White, bless him, against Stephen Hendry Hart. But how many times did Hendry beat White? Was it every time White lost, was it to Hendry? Or was there a couple in there?
I think he reached 5 finals in a row or something. So let's see Jimmy White... snooker finals. Let's get them all up, because one of them he reached 6, including 4 in a row, losing all of them, 4 to Stephen Hendry. Steve Davis, Stephen Hendry. He lost to John Parrott. And then
no wonder he's not on the BBC commentary team. He must get flashbacks every time he walks into that room.
Yeah,
he's the 3 men that.
Yeah,
they literally all work for BBC.
That's the sofa, isn't it? It's like, have you beaten Jimmy White in a world final? Yeah, step this way, please.
But I think it just became more and more apparent as it went on that it was his trophy. He was destined to win it, because even when we were watching the end of that Selby game, he had points in almost every match where he was really struggling, and it looked like he couldn't pot a ball, and then he would just turn it on when he needed to, or his opponent would sufficiently mess up. The Mark
Allen, oh my god, he's never going to live that down, because I would actually go as far as to say that I don't think he'll reach a world final now.
No,
I think
that was probably his best opportunity.
I can't believe
so
that.
Bad for him. He was another man who was very gracious, but he looked sad at the best of times. Yeah, but he just looked absolutely
soul crushed,
destroyed. It's weird because it's snooker. You don't really get a match ball missed in the same way as something like a darts.
Yeah. Because if you pot it, don't you?
Yeah,
you just pot it. Oh no,
bless him. I mean, the pockets were playing tight, I guess, the whole time.
But he was plumb on he was a straight black from the spot.
It's ridiculous. And Karen Wilson was saying he had his hand off the table. It's like, why? Just pure
Put your
pressure.
hand on the table.
But then in stark contrast, Wu, he was just in that last session. It was so enthralling because for basically the entire last session, he completely lost his cue ball, but it just didn't seem to matter. He's like, well, I fucked that, but I'll just get down and pot it now anyway. There was the point when he covered the red with the pink.
That was the last break as well.
Yeah, like that in the deciding frame. I didn't think there was going to be one more twist in the tail, because that just seemed to be how it was going. But then he managed to cover it with the pinks a bit. He's like, no, I'll just knock it in with the rest. And then the last red that he needed to win, he got too close. He was about that close to it, so he just switched to left-handed and just potted it in the left corner. So I think when he's knocking them out, you just have to say
he's going to win a few titles.
Yeah,
isn't he?
fair play. But sorry, this could take
Fernando
5 to
Alonso.
10 minutes on snooker.
Which I'm happy to do. We're across all sports here on the top step stroke.
Yeah, I guess while we're on other sports, we have to quickly say as soon as while we were recording that last episode of the Corridor of Uncertainty, talking about I was backing McKinney over Gay. Gay then scored a match-winning,
which led a BBC article to say that he's got to be in the team.
I think he probably will be the next one, and he's got 100 in the next round as well. So I do imagine we'll be seeing him. But yeah, back onto. I think we covered Alonso. I think it's good.
Yeah,
to see.
he's Jimmy White. Fernando Alonso is Jimmy White. But at least Alonso won world championships, I guess.
He won a couple.
Yeah.
But it's just like Jimmy White still tries to qualify for the Worlds every year, and it's just like, just give it up, man.
Mate, you've had your time. You've had your moment.
He's not even going to be sweeping up the seniors now because Ronnie O'Sullivan is signed up, which is just an absolute joke.
You shouldn't really be allowed. You should be one or the other.
They need to move up they need to move the age up. I think 50 is not senior.
That's
in snooker,
prime,
really. Yeah. Okay, the next race is on the 24th of May in Canada, which has worked out perfectly for me because I'm in Rome next week into this week, or the other way around. Next week into the following week. So I'm glad I don't have to broach the idea with my girlfriend of doing a a remote pod from Rome.
From the Colosseum.
So that's good. And then 24th of May, who does that favour the gap, do you think, or the race itself as well?
It's a very interesting one because if we use last year as our example, that race was won by George Russell, but Kimi Antonelli kind of had his breakout race in that he finished third and was there with the leading three, and it was, I think he only finished about 5 seconds off Russell at that point in a race that Russell did dominate. But I think that you'd say it definitely suits George more than Miami does, 100%. I love Canada. It's one of my favourite tracks. It's kind of a short circuit. It's quick. It was always fun to play on the F1 games, and that's largely my reference point. It's got the Wall of Champions. Are we going to see the Wall of Champions claim another victim? There's a really high-speed chicane at the end of the lap, and at the end there's a really tight wall. And there was a race where 3 world champions, I think it was Schumacher, Villeneuve and Hill, I'm going to say, all crashed into that wall. So it became known as the Wall of Champions, and it's claimed quite a few victims since as well. So are we going to see any of the world champions on the grid make a mistake? I think I can see a Lando Norris binning it into that wall. I hope it's not Max Verstappen, but we'll see. But yeah, so great circuit. Good chances to pass. It's heavy on brakes. It's a bit of a power circuit as well. A couple of long straights. So yeah, that should be good fun. I think it definitely allows Russell the chance to stake a bit of a claim of authority. He was great there last year. So was Kimi. So I think it could be that one is one that could go either way. I would predict a Mercedes 1-2, but really could go either way.
Fantastic. Well, that's about all we've got for you this time. Johnny, you're off to work, off to the start of a mental few days, or I guess it's
a continuation, really.
Continuation. So wish you the best of luck in all your endeavours, and may that voice remain nice and strong.
We'll see. It feels a little bit croaky today, but we'll see how we go.
Fine, you can power through as long as you don't lose it for 3 months. I wouldn't recommend that.
Yes, you've been there, haven't you?
And I've got an altogether more chill few days. I've get my first Leeds haircut after living here for over 5 years.
Where are you going? What's the
Boris and something recommended by our quiz.
I'll give you a haircut.
Yeah, it's not a haircut from it. That's the last person that you would want a haircut advice from.
Well, I just put a bolt on it and it's a colander.
But it comes recommended by our quiz teammate Joe.
Oh really?
Hair, so
he does have. He has quite the hair. Does he? He looks. I mean, does he? He doesn't perm it. Does he just have curly hair?
Yeah, I don't think so. It has the perm.
It looks
style,
perm-worthy, doesn't
it? Well, hopefully, I'm not going to get a perm. That's not what I signed up for.
I was once sat in a bar in Lincoln, and some guy, annoying thuggish guy, sat next to me and went, "Have you got a perm, mate?" I went, "No, I haven't." I went, "Yeah, you have, haven't you?" I was like, "No, I haven't." He's like, "You what? Are you fucking lying to me right now?" And I was like, "No, mate, I don't have a perm." He's like, "Do you love me?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Why are you looking at me then?" I was like, you asked me if do you have a and that was it. I just had to get up and leave.
Wow.
Anyway, there you go. That's my. I had a confrontation. Well, I don't feel like I really asked for that confrontation, but I had a confrontation placed upon me by a man who thought I had a perm, which I don't, by the way.
Well, it's, men are threatened by beautiful men.
There you go.
And
There you go.
And that's why we get started on nights out.
Soon I will have no hair, so maybe that'll make it easier.
Absolutely. Final mention to your friend Matt, who definitely won't be
Stop
listening.
it!
He definitely won't be listening by now, but he
No.
he is convinced that there's some kind of conspiracy to hide Johnny's hair. So
Yeah, it's called My Hair. That's what it. That's how is it looking now? I don't even know.
Well, it was because we had a bit of a cursed episode. The last F1. Where there was just various things that went wrong, but one of them was I set it up wrong. I didn't frame it properly, and Johnny's and my head were cut off. And then the following one, we were outside, so you had
I wore a
hat on.
cap. Yeah.
So,
Do you want to? I'll sit where I've been sat the whole time. Could you check and see if my hairline is hidden?
Let's have a look.
And see if these. Is it going to continue?
No, it's in full.
It's in full view.
It doesn't look bad though. It's more from my angle that where you can see. Maybe we need a hairline cam in the next. We need a third camera that's just like there.
In there, yeah.
That we just periodically cut
to with no explanation.
So Matt knows there's no nefarious business going on.
Like, in the F1 where they have like the little box on the timing screen. Just have a little box with my hairline on it.
Right. Shall we wrap this up? It's been a very tangential one, but I've enjoyed it, and especially considering the fact that it's falling in a bit of a dead zone for the F1. It's good that
good time to riff.
We can just riff and chat about snooker and all that. But Johnny, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you all for listening.
It's been my pleasure.
My guest Johnny Holmes, everyone. Next week we'll be speaking to Johnny Holmes about F1.
Yeah.
So tune in for that. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you. That was lovely.
I'm slightly off the rails, I think.
I enjoyed how off the rails it was. I think that's good. Then we should do that more.
Yeah.
Watching Finn vs. History has made me realise that I want to be more off the rails.